Ever feel like you're staring down just this massive plate of spaghetti, but instead of noodles, it's like software
Oh,
options?
tell me about it.
And that's kind of what picking a product lifecycle management system can feel like.
Yeah,
PLM, it's a mouthful, right?
it is.
But think of it as like the system that becomes the DNA of your product. From that first spark of an idea all the way to someone, using and loving it out in the real world.
Yeah.
And today we're handing you the map and compass to navigate this
Yeah,
tricky world.
absolutely.
No more getting lost in jargon or sales pitches.
Right.
To guide us through the twists and turns of PLM evaluations, we've got our expert with us. They've seen it all.
Happy to be here.
The good, the bad, and the just plain ugly when it comes to choosing the right system.
Yeah, you're spot on about the tricky part. Even companies with the best intentions can really stumble when it comes to this.
Yeah. Our deep dive today is based on 10 best practices for successful PLM evaluations. And the first one, it practically jumps off the page, involve experienced, independent PM experts.
Yeah.
It might seem like a no-brainer, but they really hammer this point home. What's the big deal about bringing in some outside help so early on in the process?
Well, I think you got to think of it like this. PLM, it impacts almost every single part of your company. Engineering, design, manufacturing, even marketing, they all have a stake in this. And most companies don't have just one person who can speak all of those languages fluently.
So it's like trying to bake a wedding cake, but all you have is a recipe for scrambled eggs.
Exactly. An independent expert is like that pastry chef that you call in. They've got the experience.
Yeah.
They know all the pitfalls.
Yeah.
And most importantly, they're not there trying to sell you a specific brand of flour. They're there to help you bake the best cake that you can bake.
That unbiased perspective, I can see how that would be so crucial. It's not about replacing your team. It's about having someone who can just help you ask the right questions.
Right.
Avoid those costly mistakes.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of gaining those valuable insights, the source also talks about the importance of tapping into the experiences of others, but with a really crucial caveat, avoiding the vendor echo chamber.
Right.
What is the risk of kind of jumping into conversations with vendors too early in the game?
Well, look, vendors are great, but let's be real. Their main goal is to sell you that product. Talk to them too early, and you risk, I think, getting stuck in what I call shiny object syndrome. You're wowed by all these features that you might not even really need.
Right.
And you lose sight of what your company actually needs.
It's like walking into a luxury car dealership, but you don't know how to drive a stick shift.
Exactly.
You're going to be distracted by all those fancy bells and whistles, even if they don't actually fit what you need.
Instead of heading straight for the dealership, spend some time researching. Read some industry reports. Even chat with some companies that have already gone through the PLM implementation process. That's where you're going to find, I think, the real kind of gems of wisdom.
Yeah.
Those unbiased insights that are going to save you time and money and just a whole lot of headaches down the road.
Do your homework
Yes.
before you even think about picking out paint colors.
That's it.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. The source doesn't just suggest getting the C-suite on board with PLM. It practically begs you.
Right.
Like, it is that important.
Yeah.
You wouldn't launch, a whole new product line without the full backing of the executive team.
No.
But what makes their buy-in so critical for PLM? We're just talking about software here. It's not, a whole new business venture.
Right. But it's a major undertaking, though. I mean, it impacts budgets, it impacts resources, and it can even impact the company culture.
Wow.
Having the C-suite championing the cause, it unlocks the resources you need, but I think even more importantly than that, it just shows your team that this is a top priority. This isn't just another IT project that they can kind of push to the back burner when they have time.
It's like, imagine trying to run a marathon, but management only gave you one running shoe.
Right, exactly.
Might be a little hobble along for a bit, but...
You're not going to win any races that way.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to wonder why you even bothered.
Yeah.
With their full support, though, you're not just giving your team the resources that they need, you're giving them the green light to really embrace this new system and make it their own.
And speaking of teams, the source gets pretty blunt with the next practice. It straight up says, assemble your A-team, and don't be afraid to borrow talent.
Right.
They even back it up with a quote, if it was easy, we were pulling the wrong people.
That's straight from the CIO of Cisco. And it highlights, I think, just a fundamental truth that a lot of companies overlook. The success of your PLM isn't just about the software itself, it's about the people who actually bring that software to life.
Hmm.
You need a team that not only understands the technology, but they understand the intricate dance of business processes that this technology is going to be transforming.
So we're talking about like finding those hidden superstars within your organization, the ones who see a challenge and they don't shy away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These aren't just your typical tech wizards. These are communicators, these are problem solvers, and they are passionate advocates for change. They can bridge the gap between the IT department and the shop floor, and they're not afraid to roll up their sleeves and get things done.
It sounds like building this team is almost as important as choosing the PLM system itself, if not more so.
You're getting it.
Okay.
The team is the engine that is going to drive this entire journey forward.
And for a high-performance engine, you need the right fuel, which brings us to a practice that I think really resonates, and that's don't just automate, transform. And then they have in parentheses that Ferrari needs a racetrack. Now, the source uses a great analogy here, so I'm going to put you on the spot to break this down for us.
It's a classic for a reason. Imagine buying this sleek, powerful, Ferrari, all that Italian engineering just roaring to go, and then confining it to, a bumpy, muddy dirt road.
Oh, the humanity.
I know, talk about a waste of potential.
All that power and nowhere to really open it up.
Exactly. And that's what happens when companies try to just slap PLM onto their existing, often outdated business processes. They're essentially putting a Ferrari engine in a beat-up old truck. You might see a slight improvement, but you're not going to win any races.
What you're saying is it's not enough to just automate what we're already doing.
Right.
We need to rethink the process. We need to build that racetrack where our Ferrari, in this case our PLM system, can really shine.
Now you're getting it. PLM is not just about digitizing your old habits. It's about questioning those habits. It's about finding the bottlenecks. It's about streamlining those workflows to unlock efficiencies that you never even thought possible.
So where do we start paving? Give us some concrete examples of what this transformation might actually look like in practice.
Let's talk about this time-consuming, often manual tasks that just bog down so many businesses. Think about data entry. Think about chasing approvals across multiple departments, or even just trying to find the latest version of a product design. With PLM, you can centralize all of that. No more searching through endless emails or shared drives.
You're saying it's like trading a cluttered desk with papers everywhere for this sleek, organized workspace where everything has its place.
Exactly. And just like that organized workspace helps you be more efficient, PLM streamlines your entire product development process. I've seen companies reduce their development cycles by 20%, sometimes even more, just by eliminating these bottlenecks and really fostering better collaboration.
That's incredible. A 20% reduction in development time. That's not just automation. That's a whole new level of efficiency.
It is. It's about playing the long game, which brings us to our next practice, developing a solid PLM strategy.
That's incredible. A 20% reduction in development time. That's not just automation. That's a whole new level of efficiency.
It is. It's about playing the long game, which brings us to our next practice, developing a solid PLM strategy.
So we've got our expert team. We're ready to transform our processes. But before we even hit the gas on this Ferrari, we need a roadmap. What does that roadmap actually look like?
Think of it as your PLM GPS. It helps you navigate from that initial, spark of an idea all the way to a successful long-term PLM implementation. And this strategy should answer some key questions like, who's going to be using the system? What are they using it for? What are the must-have features versus, the nice-to-haves we can phase in later? And perhaps most importantly, how will this PLM system work with all the other systems that we already have in place?
So it's about taking that 30,000-foot view, making sure that we're not just solving today's problems, but we're setting ourselves up for success down the line. Because the last thing we want is to have a bunch of different systems that can't talk to each other.
Exactly. A good PLM strategy will prevent those, what we call siloed solutions, that end up causing, honestly, more headaches than they solve. It's about creating a unified ecosystem where information can flow seamlessly across all departments.
So we've got our roadmap. We're thinking long term, but now we need to avoid another really common pitfall, and that is letting vendors dictate what we actually need. The source calls this one, define your needs, before vendors define them for you.
Remember that shiny object syndrome we were talking about earlier?
Oh, yeah.
This is where it can really trip you up. Vendors are experts at showcasing the bells and whistles, but those might not be the features that really move the needle for your business.
It's like going to a tailor and having them tell you what kind of suit you need, not the other way around.
Exactly. Before you even glance at a vendor's website or sit through a demo, go back to that strategic framework. What are the specific pain points that you're trying to address? What are those key functionalities that will unlock the most value for your organization?
So it's about going in with a clear vision, a shopping list, if you will.
Yeah.
And not being swayed by, the latest and greatest if it doesn't actually align with what you're trying to achieve.
You are the one holding the reins in this relationship. Remember that. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite topic. Calculate PLM's value. And don't let anyone inflate the numbers. This is where a lot of companies, I think, stumble.
I bet, especially when you've got those vendors whispering those sweet promises in your ear about ROI.
It's tempting to fall for those promises. But here's a sobering statistic from the source. 68% of companies don't achieve their expected ROI from PLM. And often, it's because they didn't do their homework up front.
68%. That is a failing grade in anyone's book. What's the biggest mistake that companies are making when it comes to this ROI calculation?
They're letting the vendors do the math for them. Remember, vendors, they have a vested interest in making their software look good. So they'll often present you with, best case scenarios, inflated projections. You have to be careful.
So it's like buying a lottery ticket based on someone else's lucky numbers?
Right.
The odds aren't exactly in your favor, are they?
Exactly. To avoid becoming another statistic, you need to take control of this ROI calculation yourself. Before you even talk to vendors, determine that potential value of PLM based on your specific business objectives, using realistic assumptions and a clear methodology.
So it's about taking off those rose-colored glasses and putting on our objective, data-driven hats.
Yes.
We need to know exactly what we're trying to achieve and what success looks like.
Absolutely. Don't just take their word for it. Demand proof, which leads us to our next practice, demand proof. Use cases and your data in system demos.
Now, this one sounds like common sense, but I'm guessing it's often overlooked.
You'd be surprised. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a vendor demo, right? They show you these, preloaded scenarios, everything's working seamlessly. But what happens when it's your team, your data, your real-world processes?
It's like watching a cooking show where everything always comes out perfectly golden brown.
Right.
I'm much more interested in seeing how the chef handles a burnt dish or a forgotten ingredient.
Exactly. That's why it's so crucial to go beyond those generic demos. Develop those detailed use cases that reflect your specific business challenges, and then provide the vendor with your actual data.
So instead of just watching like a carefully choreographed performance, we're actually giving the vendors a chance to prove themselves in a real-world simulation.
Precisely. Seeing that system handle your data, your workflows, that's what's going to give you true confidence in its capabilities. It's about separating the marketing hype from the reality of how this system will actually perform for your business. And speaking of reality, there's one final crucial element that ties everything together.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. Don't just assume. Get in there and test the heck out of it.
You got it. And that brings us to our final and arguably most important practice. Communication is key. Keep everyone informed and involved.
Now, this one seems like it applies to pretty much every aspect of business, but I can see how it's absolutely mission critical for something as transformative as PLM.
Think of it this way. You wouldn't launch a new product without first getting your sales team on board, right?
Definitely not. They'd be going in blind.
Exactly. And the same goes for PLM. Your employees, they need to understand what it is, how it's going to impact their work, and most importantly, what's in it for them. Without that buy-in, even the most sophisticated system is, I think, doomed to fail.
So it's about more than just sending out a company-wide email announcing the new software. We're talking about real two-way communication, addressing those concerns, getting people excited about the change.
Absolutely. This is where those hidden superstars on your implementation team, they really shine. They're not just tech experts. They're evangelists. They're cheerleaders. They're problem solvers, all rolled into one.
It's about turning PLM from another IT project into a company-wide initiative, something that everyone feels invested in.
Now you're talking. When you get that right, when people feel heard and empowered, that's when the real magic happens.
I love that, the real magic. So to sum it all up, successful PLM implementation is about careful planning, expert guidance, a focus on those unique needs that you have, and a whole lot of communication and collaboration.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a journey, not a race. And approaching it with that mindset, I think, will make all the difference.
This has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I've gone from feeling lost in a sea of options to having like a clear roadmap, a compass to kind of guide me on my way.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to, navigating this complex world of PLM.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought-provoking question. If you could wave a magic wand and streamline just one process in your organization, what would it be? And how might PLM play a role in that transformation? Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Don't forget to check out our show notes for links to all the resources that we talked about today.